Hello and good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to most of you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking your time from all over the world to join us. Welcome to our first Chat of 2024. And Hi, thank you for recognizing me. Hey, Carrie, how you doing? Welcome to our first chat of 2024. I'm your host, Shane Olborn, and I'm a research ops leader with over a decade's experience. And I've worked at some of the most innovative companies, from social media to fintech. I've been a member of the Club for almost 3 years, and getting together is the core of the club. From member-hosted gatherings to agendaless catch-ups, we host regular members-only events. The Club was founded in 2019 by Kate Towsey, and the Club is a fun and safe space for research ops professionals to share, learn, and grow together. The club has grown from a handful to currently 124 Chas from around the world that call the club their professional home. Now, every quarter, we host Cha Talks. Now, this is a public and free virtual event, and it gives our club members the opportunity to share with the world. And this is where you can learn from people who spend their time knee-deep in research ops every day. Now, today's Cha Talk is building customer insights communities and B2B recruitment panels. Participant recruitment is just about every researcher's biggest pain point. So fixing participant recruitment is often in every research ops professional's to-do list. And in today's Cha Talks, you're going to hear from two research ops professionals who have worked in B2B and B2C recruitment contexts for more than a decade. You'll also learn how using B2C customer insights communities and B2B recruitment panels to boost customer closeness. Now, very simply, it'll be comprised of two segments, and we will have a Q&A in between each session. The chat option right here is how we'll do Q&A today, and we've got Kate in the background. There we go. Thank you. And that's the easiest way to get your questions answered. So we'll be monitoring those. Be patient with us. And that's pretty much how simple this is. I know we're all pretty good with Zoom now, how it goes with, post-pandemic. So it's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions as well, any tech issues, just let us know as well on chat. So as of now, I assume you can all hear me and everyone can understand what's going on. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our partner, User Interviews. And we have Erin May here from User Interviews, who's going to tell you a little bit about what they do.
Hi, everybody. Erin May here. I'm the SVP of Marketing at User Interviews. If you aren't familiar with us, we are the fastest way to recruit quality targeted participants for absolutely any kind of research. We have two products, Recruit, which is our panel of over 4 million participants, so you can find whoever you need to talk to, and Research Hub to build and manage your own panel. They work better together. I've been with User Interviews for about 6 years. Amazing team, amazing product. But I really love working with you guys, with researchers and research ops. That's been one of the reasons I've been around so long. So obviously the market and industry has changed a lot, but the need for quality participants has not. So I'd love to offer you 3 free participants at userinterviews.com/cha-cha if you aren't a customer. If you are a customer, I know we have a lot of customers here. Great to see you. I'm Erin at userinterviews.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Love to connect. We have UI Pals in our Slack channel. We're building out our customer advisory board. So lots of ways to stay part of our community if you're already a customer. But thanks for having me, and over to you, Shane.
All right, thank you. Whoop, there we are. So introducing our first speaker today. So Carina Cook brings over a decade of experience and worked as a mixed methods researcher to a current role as Senior Manager of Research Ops at Wayfair. Prior to joining Wayfair, Karina worked in the nonprofit sector as Director of Research and Community Insights, where she focused on impact measurement and running large-scale programs. However, the majority of Karina's career has been spent working for a SaaS survey and insight community called the Maru Group, previously Vision Critical, where she conducted consumer insights research across a variety of clients and industries. Karina has always had a passion for using insights to tell a story. She loves creating efficient processes that iron out operational pain points. Karina is based in Toronto, Canada, and thrives when she's spending time with the family, doing home decor and finding deals, then telling everyone about it. Karina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Shane. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. I'm just going to go about sharing my screen so we can get started. Hey. Hello. Can everyone see my screen? Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Shane, and thank you, Kate, for having me here today. My name is Carina Cook. I am the Senior Manager of ResearchOps at Wayfair, and I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about how customer insight communities can boost research participant recruitment and also some more benefits in there. As Shane mentioned, if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk a bit about me and my background, a bit about ResearchOps at Wayfair and what we're doing, understanding our problems, framing that problem for you, talking about a potential solution, what it is, some of the key benefits, how to do it, and then how it's going. I'm going to start with a little bit of some of the lessons I've learned over the past decade of my career. And really the reason why I'm doing this is to show you how some of my unique experiences shaped my point of view on how to support research and tackle some of the common research ops blockers that many of us face. I started my career as an advertising planner, and here I got to focus on gathering insights to help inform business pitches. During this time, I got exposed to everything marketing, different mediums, channels, and really just trying to understand what's the best medium per audience. Also understanding the importance of well-crafted comms and emails and subject lines and how all of these can affect research response rates. After that, I joined the global recruitment team at a research software company. Here, I was responsible for filling research studies, communities, and all other global panels with paid participants and working with vendors all over the world to do this. I learned a lot about the recruitment process in this role, but also some of the considerations over the long-term quality of professional research participants. I would say one of the key findings was there seemed to be a high turnover in participants due to lack of quality, engagement, or just different motivating factors. After that, I spent the majority of my career as a mixed methods research consultant, also at a research software company. I was a consumer insights researcher, and I became accustomed to having all the tools at my disposal to conduct research, really allowing me to focus on conducting the research. Part of this role was also managing and using insight communities for research recruitment and execution. Here, I was able to witness successful response rates, high engagement, and the value in building brand equity with your customers. And after that, I spent 2 years as a director of impact and community insights at a nonprofit. And here I faced all different problems. I actually had access to all the participants that I could need, but the lack of appropriate tooling and resources was a real blocker to being able to execute and run quality and efficient research. And then I joined Wayfair to lead the research ops team. And some of my first tasks were to understand what were the biggest pain points when it came to conducting research, listening to all teams, researchers, and all other stakeholders, and then fix those and build in whatever sense that meant, whether it was building something internally from scratch, building processes, or building a tooling stack, so that we could do what we needed to do to grow research capabilities at scale at Wayfair. Really what we wanted was to further enable our organization to make evidence-based decisions, more access to conducting research, therefore more research happening, but also be able to spend time getting closer to our customers and understanding their everyday experiences and what really drives them. So in doing this, I learned about some of the different pain points, and I was able to narrow it down to some of the problems that we wanted to prioritize fast. And I think you'll see that many of these problems are not unique to me, and they're some of the most common problems that we all face in research ops and in research today. So I'm going to narrow down the problems, starting with participant recruitment. Very common, something we all face is actually having access to participants. And along with that comes high costs. current participant recruitment method that we had was expensive. It was costly because we were paying high CPIs and incentives per participant per study. And that is something that was really hard to scale. It's also time consuming. Our existing methods to source participants were inefficient, manual, sometimes relying solely on third parties to find the customers that we need to speak to. And the big thing here is we know who our customers are. We have access to them. So I'm going to come back to how we can leverage that piece. Next is quality participants. Sometimes relying purely on self-reported data was not the best quality. You can also run into bots, skippers, and just other reasons for lack of quality in your participants. You also have to keep on top of managing privacy and consent, reliance on third-party tools. How do we scale with that? Juggling multiple tools, and also trying to solve for multiple user types. Doing recruitment solely through external vendors became prohibitively too costly. Sometimes you wanted larger sample or niche markets, and it just became really hard to run the right methodology for the right audience. But also, there were some other problems that came up, some of which was the inefficiency and the inability to scale. We wanted to scale self-serve research, and democratization was becoming impossible. Managing multiple tools with no integrations was not efficient. The inability to access due to high cost for licenses wasn't going well. Inability to manage consistent practices and templates, all that with costly tools and methods. We found that there were duplication of efforts across features and tools, and also the inability to get access to qual, quant, and just all other methods in one space. Dealing with lean teams, so lean research teams being the only way to recruit, to run research, as well as lean operations teams being the only way to manage recruits, became prohibitive and eventually was not allowing as much research that needed to get done. And finally, enabling customer closeness. With our current methods, we were unable to get as close to our customers as we wanted regularly. It was costly, and we just don't have the mechanisms or methods to engage with them in a valuable and transparent manner. So it's sounding like a lot, and it's probably because maybe we're dreaming up a unicorn, but we were able to narrow down our criteria. And so these are a bunch of the things that we wanted. The first was cost-effective recruitment. How could we make efficient use of our internal databases and customer lists? We wanted the ability to use our own lists. We didn't want repetitive CPIs, and we wanted to be able to leverage other values to lower our incentive costs. Time efficiencies, something that was quicker to recruit, something that took advantage of embedded processes like consent, customer profiling to reduce screening and increase time to insights. And then also something that could allow us to solve for multiple user types, both B2B and B2C. So what could we use that had some type of capabilities for multiple unique experiences? When it came to the inability to scale, things that we wanted were enabling customer closeness, wanting to speak to our customers regularly and develop those deeper relationships. A scalable solution to enable self-service, something with maybe unlimited users, DIY capabilities, some limitations, but largely no high costs for access. To enable data and evidence-based decision-making across the organization, something with the ability to also integrate data across different sources, to go deeper with our data, view patterns, and maybe leverage longitudinal research. Qual and quant features, we wanted the ability to have access to different mixed methods, and we were largely limited to platforms that did either or. And finally, safe, secure processes, platforms, and international capabilities. We wanted a platform that met all our privacy compliance protocols, but also had the abilities to grow to allow for international members and potentially multilingual capabilities. So I know that's a lot to tackle, and I'm sure you can guess by now from the title of the talk that we did decide to build something called an insight community. So now I'm going to talk to you a bit about what is an insight community and how can this become a solution for some research ops problems. An insight community can be defined as a private customer engagement platform composed of targeted group of members to uncover agile, actionable insights on an ongoing basis. Keywords here being targeted, agile, actionable, and ongoing. You may ask, isn't that the same as participant panels? And the answer is not really. There are some key differences. Participant panels, sometimes also referred to as access panels or recruitment panels, are typically a group of internet users who have agreed to take part in online market research surveys or interviews. They are usually Gen Pop and professional participants. And by professional participants, it's usually someone who's largely motivated by monetary incentives. it's usually a one-way relationship. So you're able to reach out to participants, but they don't have a means to reach out to you. It's usually a transactional or one-time activity. So sometimes you run a survey, that's the end of it. You don't really get to follow up or go deeper with those respondents. And because of that, there's no customer engagement mechanism or way to feedback insights or, again, interact further with your participants. Largely driven by monetary or extrinsic incentives. And then sometimes you battle with bad participant quality. And that could, again, be battling with bots, speeders, or just less interested participants. Some of the main use cases for an access or participant panel could be things where you're looking for representation. So tracking studies, market sizing, or just understanding general impact among Gen Pop. An insight community is usually made up of your customers or your targeted audience. You could also have participant panels made up of customers, and I know lots of platforms today do that, but sometimes it doesn't have that two-way engagement mechanism. So that might be the only difference there. But with an insight community, you're looking for that two-way interface of the ability for your participants to reach out to you, but also outreach for them. The ability to do longitudinal research, iterate and follow up, and actually track changes over time. A mechanism to listen and respond to your customers, again, sharing back those insights, but also being able to gain organic insights through customer interaction. Can largely be driven by both extrinsic and intrinsic motivators, and is usually made up of dedicated, engaged participants who just want their voice to be heard by that brand. Some of the use cases for this can include things like a quick gut check, concept testing, usage and attitude understanding, longitudinal research like diaries or mixed methods, and ideation and co-creation. So the question is, which one should you use? One isn't really better than the other. It comes down to your needs. For example, we have both. We still use participant panels for our Gen Pop, and we have an insight community for our customers. And so it really comes down to some of these things, like your target audience, your budget, resources to manage a community. If customer is the way you need to go, are you able to actually run something like that? Types of activities and methodologies you need to do. So are you looking for directional insights, or are you looking for statistically significant insights? Are you happy to just run interviews, or do you want to do surveys and forums and all that? And then what are your goals when you're connecting with your customer? So there's a time, place, and use case for each. Next, I'll talk about what are some of the benefits of an insight community. The first one being time and cost savings. With an insight community, you're able to reduce the time and the cost of recruitment with one-time recruitment for participation in ongoing research. So you have people who have already consented and been profiled. This significantly reduces recruiting costs because you're only paying incentive going forward, and it also speeds up data collection. You also have the ability to instantly reach out to pre-screened participants, really speeding up that time to insights. You have the ability to recruit from your own lists or other free methods. So again, no CPIs. The ability to maybe reduce tools by consolidating tools, and the ability to lower your incentive expectations through intrinsic motivators. The next benefit is access to enhanced and scalable tools. So potentially unlimited but controlled access to an all-in-one research tool, enabling both qualitative and quantitative methodologies. The ability to save time and more research happening through this enablement. A scalable solution, so self-serve capabilities, something with permission controls, but also direct access to customers, built-in templates. The ability to empower research while still maintaining consistency in your quality and best practices. And finally, the ability to streamline processes like consent, have that be one and done, outreach, or your incentives. The third benefit is better quality data. So deeply profiled data allows you to push more relevant research requests to your customers. Continuous learning through tracking changing perceptions over time, so that longitudinal research, iterative research, following up on the why, but also the ability to potentially tie it to customer behavioral data. Observing members interacting with each other really helps you gather those organic insights about the brand. And then data quality tends to be better as respondents have a vested interest in continuing to be part of the community. So in addition to being higher quality, it's usually easier to spot things like bots because there's usually a high level of engagement required to be a part of a community. And finally, the fourth benefit is building trust with and rewarding your customers. That two-way relationship or interface for your members is there to help you build deeper connections. You are asking your customers for input on business decisions, and this shows them that we value their feedback, but it's also showing them that their voices matter when you share back the insights on how they've impacted those business decisions. The ability to have ongoing engagement with the brand does create brand affinity and loyalty with your customers. It's that feeling of being valued, feeling heard, that can all lead to more authentic and accelerated insights. And then, like all other research recruitment tools, members are provided with monetary incentives, and this can be gift cards, entries into raffles, but they're also reminded of their value through the exclusive updates and insights that you're feeding back to them. So as you can see, this is checking a lot of our boxes, and this is all sounding great and powerful. But with great power comes great responsibility. And to do all this and build this, you likely need to work with a vendor that has an insight community software or a research platform, or you can build something like this internally. But here are some of the resources and considerations that got us to where we are today. Starting with, how do you build an insight community? So picture this, you have an interface, a web page, something almost like social media that your customers have exclusive access to. And that's how they participate in research, but also engage with you on the content that you are feeding back to them. So to build this site, there are a couple things that you need, starting with creative. What do we call it? We need a name, something memorable, engaging, and exclusive. We need theming assets. What do we want this interface to look and feel like? How do we carry that theme throughout the communication from our email invites, our banners, and our survey themes? Then you're dealing with things like privacy, consent, security, legal, a lot of the similar things that you have to deal with in the regular day-to-day of ResearchOps. But through this platform, ideally, you're able to get it done in the beginning. So build that consent form, finalize those sweepstakes, put together terms of use, privacy policy, everything that your future members would need to feel safe about their data being handled. And then you're also onboarding a new tool. So still working with security, privacy, legal, all those teams to ensure that it meets your requirements. Then you're also building a website or a platform. So working with your IT teams, platform configuration, registering domains, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you can see already that doing something like this takes a village. It is a strong collaborative effort across your organization that requires a lot of dependencies. So get prepared to work with creative, with legal, with IT, with tech, with all the research teams, with leadership, with email marketing, with brand, and start to build those connections. Next, how do we fill this insight community? Well, you start with building your recruitment survey, and this is how you screen your customers into the community. This is how you include any criteria needed to join, things like consent, but also the ability to collect profiling information to store with your opt-in. And then you go to your recruitment sources. So usually, if your audience is your customers, your customer database should be your primary resource to fill your needs. And in many cases, it's enough. Things like your email lists, digital properties, your social media channels, in-store banners, referring a friend, all that kind of stuff. Once you've done all that, and you need more people, more representation, then you can use secondary sources to do further targeting. But this should not be the primary source of recruitment for your community. Implementation and governance. So here, there's a lot of questions about who owns what, who does what. Again, building something like this takes a team effort and requires a lot of collaboration across different teams. So when it comes to implementation, who's responsible for building and managing this? Who's responsible for providing platform access, training, intake processes, and building those self-serve resources so that all your stakeholders can leverage this offer? Who's responsible for socializing it, doing roadshows, and keeping up with new features? For governance, working closely with research, likely to decide what research do we prioritize on here? Who's responsible for research design, launching research, and what level of gatekeeping do we want or review when it comes to the research? And then finally, community content. So who's responsible for community engagement, driving, and collecting that content? And that's extremely important because community content and engagement is what helps keep this thing alive, thriving, and healthy. Regular communications, like your intrinsic motivators, is that part where you're really showing and telling members how they are helping, how they are valuable, how their feedback is making a difference, and how we are working to improve their experiences, but also sharing all the other juicy things that come their way, like new product releases, sales, and all that kind of stuff. So those are your intrinsic motivators. Then you also have to keep on top of calendar management. So you're keeping an eye on the quality, but also the quantity of activities that are going out to ensure we're not overburdening our members, but we're also not under-engaging them. And then again, to keep a community like this alive and thriving, you have to do health monitoring. So frequent health and engagement evaluations to check in with your members and to see what's working, what's not, but also refreshing your members. So as time goes on, if people don't, engage, refresh them and add some new excited people in there. And so for incentives, we spoke about the intrinsic ones, but there's also the extrinsic ones. And these are things like sweepstakes, raffles, gift cards, point systems, discount codes, all those other things that are going to motivate your members to participate. One tip is that by providing brand-specific gift cards or codes, we're actually returning business back to the brand in a way that meets customer needs. So that's another advantage to doing that type of incentive. But some questions that you have to think about is, what does your incentive model look like? Consider this by both audience type. So would you incentivize B2B different than B2C? And also by methodology, incentivize interviews differently than you would surveys. What methods are at your disposal? Do you have access to discount codes, products, experiences? What's your budget? And then who's going to fulfill this? Internally, or are you going to outsource it to a vendor? So now that I've spoken to you about what goes into building it, I'm happy to speak about some of the considerations that come our way, but also how it's going. So some of the things that we've had to consider is an all-in-one tool. Considering your tooling, consolidating your tooling stack definitely comes with compromise. So no all-in-one solution can really do it all, or at least can't at par with other specialty or best-in-class tools. So be selective about what makes sense to keep in your stack, knowing that. Be prepared. Ensure that you have the time, the resources, and the budget for this long-term commitment. Building a community is not the type of thing that you build and then decide a year later to abandon. Building a strong, healthy, thriving community that's exactly where you want it to be could take a few years, but the payoff could be that long-term solution that can support many needs and teams across your organization and provide that ROI. Be prepared for a learning curve. It takes time for teams to learn a new tool, build the research muscle, and all the change management that comes along with a new offering like this. And then finally, aim for a slow rollout. Do a soft launch, a pilot, allowing time for you to pick up recruitment, build the self-serve resources, training, and just perfecting the process before opening it up broader. So now you may ask, how's it going so far? So to date, we've recruited thousands of participants. We are doing more research. We are getting closer to our customers, and we're unlocking the voice of customer capabilities that we just haven't had before. And so for us, that's checking off a few boxes. For time efficiencies, recruitment takes half the amount of time. Check there. Enabling customer close lists and scaling a self-serve solution. But in just over a year since soft launch, some other numbers for you is we've conducted 25 surveys, 14 discussion forums, and over 100 interviews. And so that's checking the box for us of qual and quant features. And finally, we've had over a third of our members say that they visit the Wayfair website more often, they are more likely to recommend Wayfair products, and they're more likely to purchase from Wayfair. And that is helping us build customer trust and loyalty. So the question is this right for you? Is scaling access to customers and research something that your organization needs or wants? Do you have the resources and time commitment to build and maintain something like this? Do you have access to lists or recruitment sources to make this cost-effective for you? Do you want to go deeper with your data and leverage mixed methods and integrate with behavioral and customer data? Do you want or need to reduce the size of your tooling stack? And do you want faster access to customers? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karina. That was fantastic. We have a lot of questions coming through. So let's get that going right now. So the first question we have, I'm not doing this in order they were coming through. We just have to kind of bring these through really quickly here. From Sarang Yang, the question is, I'm curious to understand how big the team is running research ops, managing insights community, and the division of roles.
Great question. So right now, our research ops team is 2 people. I will say, though, that when we started building this, it was bigger. And so were the research teams. But the way that we govern this right now is research ops does manage the building and maintaining of these communities. We work very closely with the researchers to ensure that we're able to scale access to this. And so it's not just us supporting scaling access to PMs, designers, and all people across the organization. We have the support of our researchers as well. Did I answer all those questions? I also should note that we work very closely with the vendor that we have to manage this community. So we have support on that side too when it comes for setup, when it comes to launching things, dealing with troubleshooting. So we also have a good hand there. And that's something that I think comes optional with vendors, but it's something that we chose to include.
Okay, excellent. Sandy Amara's question, who owns, has access to this database of your insights community? Do you allow marketing, market research, consumer insight teams, etc., to recruit these folks for their research?
Yeah. So ResearchOps owns the community, but the one that we manage has unlimited access. So we do provide permissions and licenses to everyone that asks for it. We work very closely with the marketing teams, and we have worked very closely with the email marketing teams to actually fill this community. So all research teams, whether it's UXR, consumer insights, and researchers and other teams have access to this community to use. There's different permission levels that we are using. And so certain people have access to data versus not. But for the most part, everyone has the ability to create their own research. And then as mentioned in the governance slide, sometimes it just goes through some levels of review to make sure we're asking the right questions, going out to the right people. But yeah.
Thank you so much. It looks like we're at time, but we do have extra questions in here. Karina, is there a way that you could answer these questions maybe in the chat, or is there something you could do later in the process?
Yeah, happy to.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thank you all for your questions. Karina, we'll try and get back to you. We are recording this, so we do have the questions recorded in chat. So moving forward, thank you again. That was fantastic. Moving forward, we're introducing Jess. So Jess Lewis has a decade of experience working in ResearchOps and has extensive experience setting out operations for research participant recruitment. Jess has spent 7 years working for People for Research, a participant recruitment agency based in the UK, and took on an operations role to scale the business. Jess now works as the Associate Principal for Research Operations at Kaluza, a global energy technology company. She has an MBA and focused her dissertation on the use of artificial intelligence in participant recruitment. Jess, fantastic. I will let you share.
Thank you, Shane. Right. Chrome tab. Bro. Great, thank you so much for having me. So I, as Shane already said, spent 7 years working for and scaling a small recruitment agency who specialise in recruiting for user research. From the time that I started working there up until the time that I left, I helped them build a team of people who did just B2B recruitment, and clients range from global software companies, UK departments, any kind of business in between. And I personally had experience of recruiting small business owners, sales directors, farmers, developers, accountants, HR people, a tree surgeon. And the tips that I'm sharing today have come from a reflection of what I thought it would be like trying to set up recruitment in-house in my role currently, in a research operations role for a software business, and what it's actually been like applying some of those things. It's the first time I'm talking about this externally, so I'd really welcome any feedback as well on any of the reflections that I'm making today. So setting the context, just in case there's any confusion, B2B recruitment, what I mean by that is recruiting people based on their specific job role or based on their business experience. Currently at Kaluza, our users might be customer care agents or people in pricing and tariff teams. In B2B recruitment, our users also include people who are not overtly using the platform. They include people in finance positions who might be using data generated by our platform. They include operations managers who might oversee the agents, as well as senior executives whose roles rely on our software and our platform being the most reliable and efficient it can be without actually directly using it. And I spent some time thinking about the difference between B2C, so recruiting consumers for research, versus professionals. The value exchange is really different. The person taking part in research might feel that their reputation is on the line. They might feel that they need to speak on behalf of their team or their whole company, which isn't necessarily the case. They might also feel that they can't actually be honest. For example, the problems with your platform might mean that they can't follow proper company procedure, and they might be afraid that that might come out to their line manager. Also, as a researcher, You might find that you're speaking to someone who has authority over a multi-million-pound budget. You're talking to them about prospectively using the platform. And that's quite a heavy weight to bear when you're trying to just run a research session. The incentives, naturally, I could probably talk about this for 20 minutes, and it's something that comes up in Cha Cha Club all the time. But the incentive beyond that cash or voucher or any other kind of incentive that you might be giving to somebody, what's driving that person to take part in your research will differ. For example, do they want early access to your roadmap? In our field, customer care agents really care about customers getting an accurate bill. So that is something that might drive people to spend time away from their job or on their lunch break taking part in your research. I've already talked about users not being that obvious. They might not be direct users. There are commercial risks. You might not be able to speak to people using a competitive software. Would you even want those people to see a prototype? You might need to ask people to sign an NDA. We also have a limited pool of people because we only work in the energy sector currently. There's only a finite number of energy companies globally. But we might want to think about, is there an agnostic view of the types of people that might use our platform? We might find innovation from speaking to people in other industries. How are other sectors solving this particular type of problem that we want to solve? And available tools and agencies might differ as well. User interviews, just to shout out, are a great tool for recruiting for B2B. So a bit about me. I don't necessarily need to talk too much about this because Shane did a great introduction, but I think it is important to say that when I started in participant recruitment back in 2013, the types of projects that I would work on, the criteria we would be given by clients might include something like, can you get us 6 people? It would be really great if 1 or 2 of them shopped online. And it was really, really very simple. But over time, that became much more complex and nuanced in terms of the criteria that we were being asked to recruit against. Lost how I click through. So picture me applying to the role at Kaluza thinking, yeah, I spent 7 years scaling a recruitment agency. I should be really awesome at this bit of the process. And one of my tasks in my interview for the job I'm in at the moment was around solving a particular recruitment challenge. And I reveled in all the things I could bring to the role to set up this great presentation. And I was really excited to get in and apply some of that stuff. And there's 2 reasons why it's not quite worked out how I thought. Partly it's some of the stuff that I'm going to go on to talk about, but also it's because research operations isn't just about recruitment. There's a lot more to it. A couple more things I want to talk about before I jump into the tips is one thing that has been really important to me is reframing how I think about failure. This is a great book that I really enjoyed reading. And it's called Black Box Thinking, The Surprising Truth About Success. Spoiler alert, it's about failure. You learn this from the start of the book, that failure can be seen as building blocks for success. And some of the themes I'll talk about is open loop systems, perseverance, growth mindset, and making marginal gains towards success. So recruitment's hard because it's critical. Getting access to the right people is critical to how good your research and your insights are going to be. And I often see that it's seen as a task that's kind of left to the last minute. But in my perspective, a good recruitment process can really add rigor to your research. And research can almost act like a mini research project within your research project, helping you get deeper. So here are my 4 tips. Align on language, adjust the screening process, maintain momentum, and build communities. A little bit more context that might be useful. So I'm going to talk through each of these 4 tips about how that looked in an agency. And then I'm going to go on to talk about in my current role, where I'm one of 2 research operations people. We've got over 400 people in the company, and we have a democratized approach to research. So that means it's designers and product managers and other people within the business who actually do a lot of our user research. So firstly, align on language. Along with just defining anything that's open to interpretation, the example I want to talk about here is back in 2014, one of the first B2B projects I worked on, I got hung up on job titles. there was a government department who were setting up some new digital transformation. They had a new research and design team, and they were still defining what user meant to them. They approached us, the company I worked for, and I said, yes, I've worked in job recruitment. I can use LinkedIn. I can do this. It's going to be easy. But I didn't factor in that the client wanted prospective users. And for them, that meant businesses who were thinking about exporting, but maybe hadn't started exporting outside of the UK. That information doesn't exist on LinkedIn. The job titles didn't necessarily mean that they were the right people. So understanding how to go about my search process, it wasn't as simple as I thought it was going to be. It took longer to get hold of people and get them engaged in the topic that we wanted to talk about, particularly because we were talking about something they weren't yet doing. I also found that the user was changeable. Someone might leave their job and it will become someone else's responsibility. It might be that actually that responsibility will shift around within the organization, especially in small businesses. If someone's off on long-term sick or maybe on maternity leave, it might sit with somebody else for a short period of time. So we found that where the client had given me a number of bullet points, a really brief amount of information about their users, and I was focusing on the job titles, we found that actually we needed an alternative way to communicate whether I was recruiting the right kind of people and how useful they were in the actual session. And thankfully, the client, this is a great example of open loop system of having that transparency with, this is a new process for us. We might not succeed all the time, but the client were willing to work with me on how we might get success. Because also, and I don't know if it's hopefully fair to say this, in 2014 I don't think there would have been many other companies that were offering the service of B2B recruitment working in the UX sector. So what we came up with, and this was the client that suggests this, a bell curve, which I'm sure this isn't the right way to use the statistical model, but we plotted the participant on this bell curve based on a number of factors. And this helped to give a visual model to align on where language wasn't working for us initially. It gave structure to that vagueness, and it gave me the ability to compare one participant to another. And over time then, we got clarity on the language that we could use to define the users that the client wanted us to recruit. And it worked really well. Currently at Kaluza, there's loads of different titles that we use to refer to agents: customer care agents, frontline, second line, ops agent, billing agents, across different companies and markets. So to get consensus, the design team are looking at how we across the whole company align on the language that we're using. And so from a research and recruitment perspective, we're looking to lean into that process and structure everything from our recruitment to how we structure our insights around company-wide definitions. I'm also going to, rather than being a centralized ReOps team, I'm starting to embed in one particular team, who are building the part of the platform that are going to be used by agents to help tackle this particular problem. And we're looking at trialing, setting up some tagging and categorization of research that we can hopefully then scale out across the organization. So tip 2 is adjusting the screening process. Now, I don't know how common it is in other businesses to go through a screening process, but it is something that you do when you work in an agency to make sure that you're putting the right people in front of your client. So I do want to dwell for a moment here on the merits of screening, just for anyone that doesn't currently have this process. You know, if you're working in-house and you're doing your own recruitment and you don't have a formalized screening process, it can feel like an unnecessary step, but I think that screening can feel like a bit of a mini discovery ahead of the research process, and it allowed you then in the session to jump into a deeper level of research and insight finding. It sets the tone for what to expect from both parties. So for example, when I applied to the job at Kaluza, I had a recruitment contact, and it was really useful to use them for some of the sort of logistical questions. For example, I had someone ask me if they should wear a suit to a research session. And although it might seem a bit of a silly question, actually it meant that that person felt comfortable that they could just wear what they were comfortable with. They weren't approaching it as a job interview. It was a relaxed discussion. They didn't need to prove that they had a certain level of experience, because research isn't a job interview essentially. But having that process to kind of check off some of those logistical questions. If you're the person doing the screening and doing the research, it also gives you a chance to start to build up the trust and the relationship with that person, which, as Karina said, it gives the chance for the person taking part in the research to give you more authentic feedback, because they feel valued and they sort of trust that it's a safe space. Screening or some kind of personal contact ahead of the research session also has the potential to reduce the dropout rate. So if this is a big problem for you, look at that part of your process. In the agency, the failure was with screening, I didn't adapt my approach. There was a particular project where we were given a list by the client, and it was in essence a bit of a scheduling process. I wasn't having to go out and headhunt people to take part in the research, but there was still a level of screening that needed to happen to help the researcher understand who was booked into which session. I picked up the phone to a CEO from a large UK company who did not take well to the screening process. He told me that the company is very important, very influential. He sometimes sits down with the Prime Minister, and me asking him to jump through hoops to take part in the research just didn't feel right. He felt that we were lucky to have his time taking part in the research session. And so that really taught me, and I still cringe when I think about this phone call. It taught me very quickly the art of gathering just enough information to check the person suitable and help a researcher set up the session, whilst also in some cases massaging the ego of the person taking part. Another example is when I was recruiting farmers who had a deep distrust in the client that I was working for. So I had to very quickly establish what was in it for them beyond a bit of cash. Acknowledging that value exchange, recognizing the reputation, what's at stake for them, what they could potentially gain from giving up their time. At Calisa, we had difficulty with getting access to screening. Oh, it's in and out. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just take off my microphone.
We can't hear you, Jess. Can you try again? Testing.
Yeah, cool. Should work now.
Great,
Good.
thanks.
Cool. Sorry, yeah, I think my earpods are on their last leg, so hopefully you didn't miss too much.
You sound gravelly for me. Is it good for everybody else? Static, garbled, yeah, fuzzy.
Someone can't hear. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to carry on. So in the current role I work in,
it's like gravelly. You sound like a robot.
How strange. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how to fix this. Is it worth me dropping out and joining again?
You can try and do that, or just try your headset again. If it's worked well.
Okay, bear with.
Okay, how about now? It doesn't look like it's dropped down at all. Okay, how does that sound?
It's still very, now it's very faint. So perhaps leave and come back and we can pick up. We would be a little bit off time, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a try.
Okay. Shane, do you want to come and entertain the crowds? Let me pick you up and put you back on Spotlight. And maybe what I'll do is I think I can put myself on Spotlight too. Is that possible? Add Spotlight. Here we go.
Isn't Zoom fun? Zoom is so much fun.
Zoom is, well, all video conferencing is so much fun. We'll see when Jess comes back. But the point that I made that I find that it's so interesting is it's so often assumed that you can buy an amazing tool. I'm sure Erin won't mind me saying you can even buy a phenomenal tool like User Interviews, and there's still a ton of work that has to go on in the background to make it really sing for you, or even sometimes just to achieve anything. So I think Jess's talk really highlights all the intricacies and the thinking, not just of the technology and the taxonomy and all that sort of stuff. Here she is, but also of those interpersonal relationships that are so important in recruiting. Jess, how are you doing with your sound?
You tell me. Is that any
that's
better?
great. Yes,
Sounds great.
Ah,
okay, we're going to give the
good. I'm
stage
so
back to
sorry.
you. Well done, well done.
Shouldn't
Replace
have bothered with
Spotlight.
my AirPods at all. Okay, cool. So at Kaluza, I've lost my notes now. We're finding that we are having difficulty getting access to screen agents in advance of research. And we were finding that some people joining the session weren't actually quite right for what we wanted to talk about. They weren't using the part of the platform. Because we can't get access to them, they're on the phones, they've got KPIs. We've found an ally at our client who has great knowledge of the different teams and can go off and effectively headhunt the right participant. And that is working really well for us. So maintaining momentum is my third point. Recruitment, like research, is a team sport. Recruitment also can be a bit like fishing. Each day you cast your net out, you might catch something different. Some days it might be a shopping trolley. So maintaining momentum has a really big impact on how easy it feels. The main reason it felt easy and I thought, yeah, I'm great at this, is because I was a part of a team and we were all doing it day in, day out. So again, thinking about the book I referenced at the start on the marginal gains, we're able to apply learnings from one project to another. And over time, from that first project back in 2014, making small gains on how efficient and effective the recruitment process was for B2B. So, but over time, one of the failures, and this is something that we're going through at the moment at Kaluza as well, is as a company grows and scales naturally, you change the team size, the team structure, you trial different things. And as I stepped out of the front end recruitment role into more of an ops role to keep the company growing, I found that I was still occasionally being jumping back in to solve recruitment problems, and often the person had the answers, but it was just that push, when you're cycling to the top of the hill and you're just starting to run out of energy before you hit that peak and get the momentum to just go wee down the other side. That's essentially what a lot of the time people needed from me, is that help with pushing the momentum forwards. So in an agency, the way in which we maintained that momentum is having small teams, the daily stand-up, sharing information so we could all help one another. There's also a lag of response rates, and this works no matter how you're going about the recruitment process, whether you're sending emails out to your customers, whether you're using a tool and sending invites out or posting an opportunity on User Interviews. There's going to be a lag rate for how quickly people might respond. And it might be that someone is really great, but you filled all your slots. So keeping in touch with that person, saying, look, I've got more research happening next week. Can I keep in touch? Just keeping an eye on time. And it's a challenge for us at Kaluza, where not all teams have a regular cadence of research. So we're leaning into the momentum of other teams who are talking to users regularly. Marketing, client success, and product managers are pivotal at the moment in helping us recruit our users. Building communities is my last point, and I could just say build relationships, but a relationship is between two people. This is more than that. It's that team sport idea again. Relying on individual relationships. So at Kaluza, I said we've got that ally. Historically, we had another contact, they left, and the process broke down. So I'm looking at how to build a community around the processes that we have and the individual relationships that we have. We're getting it written into contracts with our clients that they will allow us access to people to do our research. I'm conscious that I want to make sure that there's time for questions at the end. So I'm going to really quickly skim through the last couple of slides that I've got. So building a community within your panel. I mean, Karina's just shared some really awesome tips on that. Building communities outside of your organization. So I suppose thinking about a neighborhood and how you might build a network with your neighbors. You're doing favors, you're showing willing. We had a company conference last year, and to build a relationship with a new person, I had drinks tokens. I wasn't staying for the drink section. I used that as an opportunity to go and talk to someone in a new team and said, hey, have my drinks tokens. So my tips. Align on language, open loop systems, open communication models, using visual aids as well to build a shared understanding of who your users are. Don't necessarily get hung up on job titles, instead focus on capabilities and skills. Adjusting the screening process or the selection process that you're using. You could use user interviews to run a test of how the questions that you're using to screen people to see if it's working well or not. A really fun example, which is actually a consumer one, is we did some research for food delivery company, and they had a set of questions they wanted us to ask everybody about their attitudes to what made them choose a certain lunchtime thing. And actually people responded differently if we asked them the question before lunch versus after lunch. So it's just interesting to kind of test out some of those things before you do your research. Maintaining momentum. Recruitment is always on the agenda, even if you're not actively recruiting. It's always in the back of my mind because it's such a big focus for re-ups. Building community, showing willing, doing favour, think beyond individual relationships. We're not currently recruiting researchers or anything, but take a look at our career site and drop me a message on LinkedIn if I don't get around to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess. We don't have any questions in the chat. We are pretty much out of time, and I just wanted to let everybody know. Thanks for joining us today. It has been pretty amazing to see this reception that we've had today. I wanted everyone to know that there is a few things to share out. So just 1 second. Technical things are fun. All right. Make sure, if you don't already, please follow us on charcha.club. That is our site. There's so much information for our next events that are happening. If you are a ResearchOps professional and you would like to join, there is information on how to join. There is so many things that are happening this year. It's so exciting. Not sure if I can share, but I want to tease a few things. There is a podcast that's coming up as well. User interviews have been so good to us this year as well. And I'd like to also let you know we are going to be recording today's session. That's the way to view the slide decks as well. Follow us on the youtube.com channel. So we have a Charcha Research Ops channel as well. And we also have our company page on LinkedIn. Erin, I'd like to hand this over to you, just a little bit of a spruik about user interviews.
Hi, me again, Erin, SVP Marketing at User Interviews. Just to say again, thanks so much for having us here. We're thrilled to be here, to be sponsoring this wonderful group of re-ops professionals. And we've got a lot of stuff to look forward to. We're going to be doing our UX event again this year, our re-ops appreciation event this year. And again, go over to userinterviews.com/chacha for some free participants, or hit me up on LinkedIn or email, and would love to connect with you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
That's it. We're over and out.